Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today I want to talk about Cardano because I think we're seeing a lot of things very quietly happening, and it makes me wonder, do people know something that we maybe don't know? And so I want to talk a little bit more about that today. Also, we will take a look at the movement of the Cardano coin as well, see how price is holding up, a lot of that type of stuff. We did just see a fairly key level of resistance getting broken, or support, getting broken. And so I want to talk a little bit about that also as well. So moving on, let's go ahead and dive right in. We will start with crypto bubbles just so we can see overall the market not doing particularly well. Everything's kind of down, kind of wholesale on the market. We do have a couple, kind of a handful of items here and there that are up on the day, but overall, basically the entire market is down. So, we could see that. And then also on the weekly, kind of even more so than that. We obviously do have kind of more here. We can see that XCN is kind of the only one that's up on the week pretty majorly. Everything else down pretty hard. We actually can't see, I'll pull this one into the screen. We can see ADA down only 4.7% on the week though, which comparatively is pretty dang good. So looking pretty good there. If we do go over and move to the chart though, we can see something that's happened recently that isn't necessarily the best of news, because we saw kind of two major trend changes after this explosion in price after the US election. We can see obviously a bit of a descending trend line that we did actually break. We'd stayed above it for quite a while, and we were actually kind of forming what seemed to be another little bit of an ascending trend line, which we have in fact broken through. So we did actually see a wick down to this about 85-cent target here. A little bit of a rogue wick here. This is when there was a whole bunch of the liquidations within the market. But we can see a little bit of a price recovery. We're coming back up to this 95-cent level resistance now, so we will have to see how price does against that. But as we can see, price coming down, staying towards the bottom end of the Bollinger Bands. We are below average in terms of RSI as well, so not too oversold here, but also not particularly strong. So we are seeing that Cardano's kind of sitting in what I would say is an okay position. The chart holding up, I would say, fairly decently, especially given kind of what we've seen out of some other altcoins. So I think there's definitely a general level of positive sentiment here for the Cardano coin. So obviously, some pretty good news overall, even though we are seeing some somewhat bad-ish things happening from a technical perspective. The chart overall is still holding relatively strong. So I do think that is good news. I think this could potentially be kind of what we're going to get to a little bit later on in this video, actually probably coming up next, is I think there might be some insider information going on, or some people knowing something that the rest of us may not know. So stay around for that. But before we go there, actually, if you do want to trade Cardano, Bitcoin, Ethereum, anything like that, potentially load up on some spot bags or even do some leverage trading if you are interested in leverage trading, I do have that link to BTCC in the description below. They are doing that 10% bonus on first time deposits. So really, really great deal. I love free money. I'm sure you do as well. Also extra bonuses up to $10,055 per user, so they really are giving you a whole bunch of money to trade with them, which is pretty cool. And also no VPN or KYC necessary if that is something that you're interested in. So moving on, like I said, if you are interested, just check the link in the description below. Go on ahead, get signed up, super quick, super easy. But moving on though, I did want to take a look at a couple of different things here. So first, what we can see is NASA uses Cardano as SpaceX next, and part of this is a little bit unrelated here, because we could see in this article it says Elon Musk said to propose blockchain use at Doge for efficiency, which could be pretty interesting. That was actually part of the reason that XCN was blowing up, which is kind of obviously some good information to know. Whether they use Cardano or some other network, it's really hard to say for sure. Here is the source here, so if you're interested, we could see that some potentially interesting things happening on Cardano. And now coupled with this kind of in a vacuum, I probably wouldn't take too much stock in. This is something where it's meh, who really cares? And frankly, with the whole SpaceX thing, this is, I would say, kind of a little bit of a false equivalent. This article is talking about Doge and we're referring to SpaceX. Doesn't really make a whole ton of sense there. But I think that kind of the sentiment makes sense, is that Cardano is making some moves with some government organizations and some very large organizations and some very influential people, which is obviously very important. So moving on to the next thing that we're taking a look at though, this I think is, I'm essentially kind of building a narrative here. Hopefully you can see where I'm going with this. You can obviously choose to agree or disagree. None of this that I say is financial advice. This is just some news that I found and kind of some interesting stats that we're seeing. All of this is posted within probably the past 12 hours, at least as of the time of this recording. By the time you guys see this, it will be within 24 hours for sure. So, this is something that I do think is something to maybe potentially take stock in. Obviously, of course, you need to do your own research, make your own decisions, a lot of that type of stuff. But what we can see here is Cardano futures open interest has surged to an all-time high, signaling unprecedented market activity. Now, if we look at this, what we can see is obviously we see that a little bit of explosion at the beginning of November. We see things taper off a little bit, but then recently we've seen, a really, really strong push out for open interest. Prices stayed relatively similar while we're seeing an explosion in open interest. We can see basically from the beginning of November to about right now, we've seen open interest about 5x over the span of a couple months, which is obviously very impressive. We can see open interest right now is higher than when Cardano was almost $3 a token. So very, very interesting thing there. I'm definitely want to keep a close eye on this because there's a lot of open interest coming in for seemingly little price movement. So, of course, that kind of leads you to believe that maybe somebody might know something that we don't. Moving on, there is kind of an additional piece of information here. This isn't necessarily like signaling any sort of like potential insider movement, but it's also just really, really good news that we can see Cardano ranks number 3 in developer activity across all blockchains. So we can see ICP, Hedera, and then Cardano. One thing that is kind of interesting, kind of between a little bit tangential to this video, is we can see that ICP and HBAR actually just created a partnership together. They are the two leading in terms of developer activity. I think that's pretty impressive. One thing that I have actually also talked about, as again a little bit of a tangent here, is Cardano's talked very, very heavily about building on Bitcoin. This is something that Charles Hoskinson has reiterated multiple times, said several different times. Bitcoin is the future. Bitcoin's how we unlock a whole bunch of liquidity. Bitcoin is how we can unlock a whole bunch of expressiveness on Bitcoin. We should do it. We should do it. We should do it. Cardano's going to be the one to do it. Let's go. Which is awesome, right? But part of what remains to be seen is how close is Cardano really to being able to do something like that? Because what we do know for sure is that ICP is already capable of doing this. We've seen Hedera move over, partner with ICP to unlock a lot of this type of stuff because it's already built. And so something I think could be a little bit interesting here is maybe we see Cardano move in and do something similar, which could be some really, really crazy news within the crypto market, because essentially, given that this tech is already built out, Cardano, we've already heard Charles Hoskinson, he wants to go to Bitcoin Las Vegas in May of 2025 and announce to the world that Cardano is now, building on Bitcoin, or they're a Bitcoin project that that they want to help unlock Bitcoin and build on Bitcoin, do all that type of stuff. What better way to do that than to roll up to that place or to that convention and already be like, yeah, we can build on Bitcoin today, right? And that is possible with ICP and a lot of the technology that it's unlocked. So really interested to kind of see how that ends up shaking out. There's a bunch of different things happening for Cardano right now. Again, of course, we're not in the necessarily best market sentiment place right now, but overall I would say we're seeing a lot of strength coming out of the Cardano chart. We're seeing a lot of really interesting news, bullish sentiments, potentially things that could really mean some really, really awesome price movement out of Cardano. So again, none of this is financial advice. Obviously some of this is a little bit of speculation, a little bit of me kind of connecting one point to the next, and maybe I've come to completely the wrong conclusion, but overall just logically based on a lot of what we're seeing, I think Cardano's looking pretty good, and obviously we're seeing a lot of other things run pretty hard. HBAR's been one, Solana's been one, XRP's been another. All of these have kind of had a similar level of positive sentiment or buzz around it, if you ask me. So very, very interested to see what happens here. If you found the information in this video useful, please do give me a like and a subscribe, because it really, really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, thoughts, feelings, whatever, please just drop those in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of those. You guys leave some really, really interesting and insightful comments, so I do appreciate when you guys do that, because it is always nice to interact with you guys and answer any questions that you have. Also, just get your take on the market. If you feel like I've arrived in completely the wrong direction based on some of the data that I've showed, I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to hear your counterpoint. I always do really appreciate those types of comments as well. So again, like I said, any types of comments, all types of comments, really appreciated. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.